And now enough of me rambling. I'd like to introduce Flea, who is the CISO at Gusto. He's going to be doing a keynote on giveaway security Legos, dumping traditional security teams. Leave it away.
I'm going to take a second here to get set up. It's an interesting intro, and in particular, it's always good to, I guess, get these talks like kicked off with like some somewhat scary things, like reminders like, hey, there's this crazy virus going on, and oh yeah, by the way, which I did not know, I'm not being paid for this. Okay, thanks, that's good to find out. And you know, I probably should have read that guideline early about not being an ass. So bear with me, I will attempt. So, you know, as we mentioned, my name is Flea. I'm going to be talking to you about this idea of giving away your security Legos. I tried to actually make this talk a little bit more friendly and less violent in the language. So I actually decided to say dumping the traditional security team as opposed to killing the traditional security team. But I guess I snuck that in there anyway. So I'm Flea. I've worked at a couple of security companies. I've actually worked at a couple of startups. You know, I have a history at Square, at Twilio. I'm now at Gusto, where we actually focus on building a people platform. And actually, one of the great things about all these adventures has been that emphasis on building. I learned a ton at Twilio about the power of code and what it means to be a builder. Took that on further at Square and just really, really elevated myself. Now at Gusto, I'm not only thinking about what I can do to actually build with code, but also what I can actually do with building with people. But also I want to take a step back. I think as a lot of you, probably my first exposure to building was Legos. I love Legos. Everybody likes Legos. Maybe if you're a parent, you may not like Legos so much, in particular if you actually find them laying around, et cetera. But it's actually just one of those really great accessible tools that I think everybody can use. And if you actually figure out and actually pay attention to Legos, you can actually build some things that are actually marvelous and fantastic. So maybe actually take a little history of Legos for those of you that don't know. So at a minimum, you'll come away from this talk with just some random useless bar trivia. So Lego is actually a ridiculously old company. And the word Lego actually comes from the Danish legat, and I'm sure I mutilated that, but it actually means play well. And I love that in particular when it comes to security. Oddly enough, they actually started out by building wooden toys. And that was like the whole deal. It's like, hey, kids need things to play with, et cetera. That goes much later that they actually went on to build these plastic toys that we all know about. But it's actually one of those things that everybody resonates with all across the world. Everybody knows about Legos. It is the most powerful brand in the world. One thing that I really, really latched onto with Legos was their motto, which is, the best is not too good. I'm totally stealing that, so everybody actually works with me at Gusto. That's the new thing I'm gonna be yelling at you. But that's just a little bit of background on Legos, and this is also to set you up for a really, really, really extended and drawn out analogy, so you can actually see a lot of Legos in a bunch of slides. I want to start off, though, talking about the stereotypical company. And immediate disclaimer, I know that your company is special, and it's a snowflake, and you do things better than anybody else, and you have nothing in common with anybody else. So just take this with a grain of salt, that these are just broad generalizations, and like most other stereotypes, it's not true. I want to talk about companies, though, because how we interact with companies as security professionals, and some of the things that we think about and take for granted. You know, we kind of think that companies are like these monoliths that actually, you know, fighting against us, et cetera. And I actually just want to bring back those key aspects of a company. Companies exist to solve a problem for customers. And ideally, they want to actually do that in the most efficient way possible. And at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is they're trying to take all of their Legos and build something great. Like a company that is doing well is meant to grow and extend itself and continue growing and extending itself. Every company, even the tiny little baby companies, so for those of you who are working at the 10-person startup, your 10-person startup is complex. For those of you working at the huge monoliths, the 100,000, 200,000 employees, obviously that's really complex. No company is actually simple. I think one of those other things that we often think about as security professionals, in particular when you think about the size of your security team or maybe the reach you have, is that the company doesn't care about security. That's actually not true. Your company cares deeply about risk, but it cares about all risk. So let's take a look at the stereotypical security team at some of these quote unquote stereotypical companies. And this will probably make you sad because it makes me sad whenever I think about it, is I personally did not sign up to be a cop, but a lot of the tasks that traditional security teams have often look like cops. It's like, oh, well, I'm here to make sure that nothing bad happens. I'm going to keep all the bad people out. I'm going to say no to you, and you're not allowed to do X, Y, and Z. You can't have a Linux laptop. You can't have a MacBook. You have to have this shitty Windows PC. All these kind of things that we think about when other people, at least as they experience security, have to deal with this. You know, the other really, really weird thing that you actually see about security teams is that oftentimes we're the ones pointed towards when something bad goes wrong. It's like, hey, my company got popped. Oh, security, what happened? Why did we get hacked? What went wrong? Why didn't you stop all the hackers? You should have been doing everything possible and eliminating all risk because you're the security team. It doesn't actually feel like that. Even more interesting is when you look at how security teams are staffed inside of companies, it doesn't seem like we're necessarily set up for success in the traditional security team model. Like most companies that you look at, and this is hand-wavy, anecdotal, I found some stats on the internet so you know it's true. Most companies' security teams are less than 1% of the company. And there's definitely some anomalies out there. Some companies are doing fantastic things and really investing in security. The smart ones recognize that security is a competitive advantage, but not all companies are smart. And not all companies also have that same approach. So in general, you are always outnumbered and always outgunned. At least that's what it feels like. But probably the worst thing about a traditional security team is that they really look like a bunch of people that are just going through, it's like, oh, yep, let me take a look at that. Oh, I approve it. Oh, let me take a look at that. Oh, that's really yucky. I'm gonna, deny that, repeat, et cetera, et cetera. And it's such a weird thing because I never thought that I would turn into a bureaucrat. And that's effectively what it feels like a lot of traditional security teams are doing. It's like, did I sign up to be a hacker or did I sign up to be an accountant? I personally think that security teams are probably a large part of the success for Atlassian just because of all the JIRA tickets that we file and put people through. So I'm really grateful that Atlassian is a sponsor because at least we're getting some of that money back. But seriously, like how many people in this room have a security team or part of your function is you're required to do design reviews? Ugh, that hurts. Or you're required someone to actually review access and say, oh, this person gets to have permissions, or oh, I need to actually look at this vendor, I need to look at this one-person company, I need to look at this little crappy Chrome plugin, I gotta look at every single piece of software that actually comes in there. I did not sign up for that. That is a horrible experience. All the years that I actually spent trying to at least be a real security person doesn't feel like that when I'm just doing a bunch of paperwork. I wanted to do deeply technical work, not just be in somebody else's way and causing friction and frustration for other people. Part of that, though, is because of myths that we actually tell ourselves. And a lot of things that we kind of perpetuate about what it means to be a security professional. There's all these things that we actually want to believe. Like one is this idea that we're not drowning. I also don't understand why this kid is so blissful, and also where's this kid's parents? Whatever, I'm not a parent, so maybe I don't know. But it's like all these weird things and weird stereotypes that we perpetuate, like this idea that security is the smartest team. I have worked with a lot of dumb security people. I've worked with a lot of dumb people. I consider myself dumb as well. But it's this idea that when we show up, we know better than the developers, and that the developer doesn't know what he's doing, and that she's gonna go out and she's gonna craft something that's gonna just destroy the company, and I have to be there watching over her shoulders, otherwise she's gonna make a mistake. One of my favorites, though, is this idea that all the reviews that we do are actually that meaningful. Do you really believe that the design review you performed is the same code that is in production? How do you guarantee that? I've definitely experienced where, yep, security did the sign off and something else completely different is in production. The other odd thing I find is this idea that security is too hard. There definitely are some complex things in security. Like if you were to ask Flea to actually do some crypto work, you're gonna have a bad time. Everybody's gonna be unhappy. But we do know that people can learn these things. And it's not one of those things that only security professionals can do, but we've kind of perpetuated this myth that only security people wearing a hoodie with purple hair, I don't have hair, et cetera, can actually do these things. It led to this idea that we perpetuated ourselves that we need to control everything. That if somebody is trying to build something, we need to be holding on to a lot of those Lego blocks. I think that's dumb. Think about this idea of us and a company trying to build something, and they say, hey, we want this multi-rainbow architecture, some like all these various things we're actually trying to piece together, et cetera. But when you think about security as a gate, we're the ones holding all these red blocks. Why? This is appropriate because they're filming The Matrix in San Francisco right now. But no, seriously, like, what if there actually was a better way? And that's what I'm pitching to you, and hopefully get you to at least think about how we should be practicing security. What we really want to do and what the company needs and deserves is secure outcomes. A secure outcome does not need to be done by a security professional or somebody that has security in their title. We need to actually be flexible around that in order to allow other teams to help us have those secure outcomes and to encourage them to drive towards secure outcomes. At the end of the day, some of the most powerful individuals in your company are the developers. Help the developers be better. So I hear what you're saying. It's like, okay, well, Flea, you gave this nice little pitch and it's all doom and gloom and security sucks. And what should we do now? And this is where this whole idea of actually sharing our Legos comes into place. How can we actually allow more people to participate in our ecosystem and hopefully take more vacations and be on call a little less? The way you do this is you actually make it everybody's job. I know every single person in here, their company says security is everyone's job. But is that real? I don't feel like it can ever be real because in a lot of companies, when something goes wrong, the security team is blamed. One of the competitive advantages that companies like Square or Netflix or Gusto has is this idea that the decision maker owns the risk and they own the consequences that go along with that. But there's so much power in that of me showing up as a security professional and saying, hey, I'm here to help, but you can make whatever decision you want, but you have to live with that decision. And if we get popped, if something goes wrong, we hurt one of our customers, that is you, not me. Now, we're definitely there to support people and to help them actually really be successful, but that idea of actually owning the outcome and the consequences associated with that outcome drives phenomenal behavior. And it is so positive, and it's just a great way to practice security. You know, part of the reason why I like this model is that security never has all of the context. I'm a horrible product person. So like when Twitter launched, I was like, oh, this is the dumbest idea ever. That's never gonna go anywhere. When Facebook launched, oh, that's never gonna go anywhere. Who would ever want that? Fitbit, who would want some kind of tracker, like looking in their lives, et cetera? I'm a horrible product person. I can't figure out how to make the same decisions that they do, and also don't know the same concerns. I would argue to say that since security is primarily an external entity or an external team to other teams, we will never know all the nuance of what they're working with. We don't know their code base as well. We don't know what their customer feedback really is, and we don't know how some of our decisions are going to impact those customers. By pushing this back onto the teams and giving them more freedom, we're also reducing that process overhead. And this is how we really scale. When you can say, hey, I'm going to help you set up processes, I'm going to give you code, et cetera, you can actually scale a 4-person security team, a 5-person security team, a 10-person security team, sometimes even a 1-person security team. So I know what you're asking. All right, Flea, I'm bought in. What should I be giving up? When I talk about this idea of sharing the red Legos, there's all kinds of things that we should be pushing back onto other people. In particular, we got to get rid of gates. I personally rarely see gates be truly effective at driving secure outcomes. Even more so, gates slow your company down. One of the biggest risks to companies is shipping the wrong thing or shipping something too late. You don't want security that could be part of that reason. This, next point is actually a no-brainer. The devs should be doing the code review. They will know the code much better than we will, and they know the entire ecosystem of what that code looks like, where it lives, et cetera, better than anybody on the security team. I would love to see more product managers themselves actually lead those threat models. We can teach them how to do a threat model. If you know Joy Forsyth, she has this phenomenal little talk that she does where she actually can teach a kindergartner to threat model. If you can teach a kindergartner to threat model, I'm positive you can teach a product manager to threat model. One of the other big things, and this is probably maybe the key, is making sure that the product owner truly owns the risk and owns the risk acceptance. Now, part of that means that you're going to occasionally have to be like, because they're going to make a decision that you don't like. But in exchange for that, they're going to start making more decisions you do like. And they're going to make decisions without you even needing to be there. We want to push down to our employees that everybody in the company is responsible for protecting data. And when you really instill upon them this idea that data is an actual human, it resonates in a way that I don't think we've communicated before. If I can explain to you how losing your laptop or not using 2FA, et cetera, impacts an actual human being, you change behavior. Probably though, if you want to take anything else away from this, is that every single person must be held accountable. And this is actually one of the great things that security can do. When security works well, it's helping a company understand and manage risk. I did not say mitigate, I did not say prevent. The idea is that we actually want to help them see what their risk budget is so they can ideally make the right choices automatically. I don't want to scare anybody. Security is not going away. The people who own those security operations, though, are going to change. Now, this is going to freak you out because we know that humans are human and they're going to make mistakes. And probably one of the very first things that pops up is like, oh my God, what if something goes wrong? I can put you at ease for your question. I already know the answer to this question. What if something goes wrong? Yeah, it's definitely going to go wrong. People are definitely going to make mistakes. They are going to do things in ways that you do not like. They're going to use products you don't like. I am very opinionated about security products. The product people are going to choose security products that I hate. But if it gets the job done, then I need to be comfortable with that outcome. One of the things that I've actually experienced, though, is the opposite. I've actually found more pleasant surprises by pushing security back out into the company as opposed to nightmares. People become much more engaged, excited. Developers in particular want to do the right thing. They actually want to write great secure code. And now they actually have the opportunity to. By the security team saying like, hey, security is your responsibility to the product team, developers are now empowered to tell their managers, their product managers, et cetera, well, time out, I have to make sure this is secure. In the same way that the developer feels empowered to say, no, there's a bug in this code and the feature doesn't work. They can and will push back because we've actually pushed that power back into them. Some tricks, though, is to figure out ways to help teams fail quickly. And if they're going to make security mistakes, ideally make small security mistakes. And that's by saying like, hey, just try this out. We'll be along for the ride with you, et cetera. Help, you being engaged in that process along with them. I think something that people also forget a lot is that security teams do make mistakes. They make mistakes a lot. How many people here have ever actually brought down production as a security person by scanning, pen testing, et cetera? I see some people here that I know should be raising their hands. That's fine. This isn't Hackers Anonymous. It's fine. No, but it's like, we should also be comfortable with the product teams making some of those same mistakes. You don't want to give them everything at once, right? It's like, there's this idea of like Lego blocks. You want to give them maybe some of the bigger blocks. You don't want to give them the things that they can choke on, et cetera. You want to give them chances to actually ramp up. Give them the tools and support, though, so that when they do make mistakes, the impact of that mistake is just minimal. I just realized, I'm pretty sure everybody in this room is a security professional, and I'm kind of lobbying to get rid of your job. That's actually not actually the point of my talk, though. But it is one of the things that people actually, I think, hold on to. Maybe one of the reasons why we've held on to these red Legos is because we think that's the thing that defines us. That's what keeps us employed, et cetera. There's still a ton of work to do. The things I'm advocating for pushing down are the things that are best handled by the development teams, et cetera. I would argue that the things that the security team is best positioned to do and are the most impactful for are a different set of skills, and actually the skills that we really enjoy. So this idea of actually consulting with teams and saying like, hey, let's sit down and talk about your design. You don't have to listen to me. If you want my help, I'm happy to sit down, look through the design, talk through about the product features you're about to make, et cetera, and just say, hey, this is maybe one of the risks and some trade-offs you might want to consider. Oh, you identified this risk yourself? Here's some of the things I think of when I think of actually mitigating those things. You get to be creative and actually build again. This idea of security is kind of being that lens for the rest of the company to really understand risk and actually see the entire ecosystem. So a product team can think about their individual risk, but they may not be aware of all the other teams that are involved in some of the decisions they make. And security is a good area to actually kind of focus that in. I think probably one of the things that security could be a little bit more powerful at and should work a little bit more at is culture building. Culture scales. If we can convince other people to care about security, to care about privacy, to care about the humans at the end of the bits and bytes, our job is almost won. That's actually one of the more powerful things you can actually do as a security team, is educate your users and to encourage them to be excited about security. By pushing a lot of the Jira tickets and the approvals and reviews off, you can also get back to actually doing real security work. You can do deep research now. You can specialize on some really, really complex problems. One of the things that was really exciting for people in the Square security team is that they actually spent most of their time writing code. How many of you get to write code anymore? How many of you actually get to do deep reversing? How many of you actually get to do what you signed up for when you were just a little baby hacker? Going back to this idea of security being the lens around like risk, et cetera, we still need to help shepherd vulnerabilities. It's not your job to fix stuff. It's not your job to patch, but it is your job to help people stay on top of their vulns. And then, of course, the thing that we are, unfortunately, I guess, really good at is actually handling incidents and doing forensics. I personally think incidents can be fun. I don't want any, but they can be interesting. So this idea of having a team that is essentially providing that lens and creating like holistic risk visibility, it's like, yeah, you get to think about and search for those like really, really deep, nuanced security issues. You can also help the company understand when there's actually conflicts of risk decisions. So maybe the marketing team wants to put something on the website and they feel like they're empowered to do so, and they should, but one of the product teams wants to alter how cookies work inside of the ecosystem. And there could actually be a conflict there the marketing team would not know about and the product team may not know about. And that's actually a great thing that security can provide, this whole holistic lens of the entire risk in the ecosystem. Also interpreting the threat landscape for people. Your normal coworker probably is not looking at every single 0-day that's been released. They're not reading all the same papers that we are. They don't understand speculative execution. They just heard it on the news. And it's kind of our job to interpret those people and help them understand, how does this impact the company? How does this impact your team? What should you be prioritizing and where should you prioritize? And then finally, probably the hardest problem in computer science is actually finding out where everything is. This idea of cataloging things. It's also fundamental to security, and it helps us do our job better. When we think about education and this role of security is almost like a missionary / evangelist, it's like, yeah, you want to provide role-specific security training to people. I've fallen to this bucket of just giving people just, oh, here's your generic OWASP top 10 security training. Yep, you're a firmware engineer. Never going to care about this, but you have to take it. That's how you lose in security, is by giving just generic security training, but role-specific training is actually really engaging, and developers love it, and they want it all the time. Every developer wants to be a better engineer. Something I don't see enough of is teaching people about privacy. For me, that's actually deeply personal. I want more and more people to actually think more about their privacy, and I think if we do and educate the rest of our companies will make better decisions so that people will actually start using our products as opposed to fighting our products. I think yet another internet statistic is like 1 out of 10 registrations is a fake email address because people worry about spam. So they're no longer actually getting the full value of your service, and you're also not getting the full value of that relationship. If we can actually get companies to think more about privacy though, we can actually bring more people to our platforms. Everybody needs to learn about social engineering, including security people. Like, my favorite thing is when I hear security people brag about how great they are at social engineering and then find out they can't get people inside their company to patch vulns. It's like, Just an opinion. If you also want to get people highly engaged, and you can actually do this with every person in your company, teach them how to hack. Teach them the same things that we learned. Every single person in here was a noob at one point. Every single person here started from zero, and what that means is that every single person out there can also learn the things that we do. Probably one of the more controversial things is telling people about this idea of pragmatic risk. Yep, there's just going to be some things you're going to live with. It's going to make you feel bad. Hopefully it makes you feel bad. But we know that you can't fix and solve everything at once. You can't address every single risk. And also, taking risk is what allows companies to grow. If we did not take the risk of saying, hey, let's allow somebody to take a credit card on the internet, we wouldn't have the majority of companies we have here. That sounds like a crazy idea when you think about it back in my day. Back in the 90s and things like that, putting your credit card on the internet was scary. But that risk allowed other companies to flourish. If you really want to have fun and get people engaged, do a tabletop exercise. Everybody likes D&D. They just don't know they like D&D. When you actually introduce them to tabletops, they get super excited. Even people that I would never have expected. So we actually did a tabletop exercise with one of our chief people officer, and she can't stop ranting about it, like how awesome it was and how exciting it was, etc. They want to be engaged. We just have to actually go to them and engage them. Shepherding vulns. Vulns tend to wander. They will stay out in the pasture and graze for much longer than we'd ever actually like. But one of the things that a security team can also do is part of the reason why they oftentimes don't get patched is that the teams aren't getting them properly prioritized. And we don't help them understand, like, hey, what are the things you should be fixing right now? And they just stop from pure vuln overload. I'm sure there's actually some scanning vendors out here. I used to be one of those horrible vendors as well. I used to work at Fortify, giving people like tons and tons of results. And it turns out you can overwhelm somebody with that. But the security team can actually help there. And that's actually one of the key things. You understand what the results actually mean and what that impact is when you work along with another team. Hold teams accountable. Holding somebody accountable does not mean that you're going up and yelling at them. One of my favorite things to do is to just publish it. Everybody in the company gets to see who's meeting their SLAs, who's not meeting their SLAs, who are the really, really good actors inside the company. And it turns out that sunlight is a great disinfectant. And when you make things visible, people change their behavior. Identifying patterns, though, of vulns, like really being understood, like, hey, wait a second, it turns out this team here has a lot of cross-site scripting. This other team here also has cross-site scripting. Okay, that's a pattern inside our company. Let's actually figure out a true systemic fix. How do we actually resolve this issue? Remembering to right-size the vuln management process for each team. How an infrastructure/DevOps team wants to patch 200 servers is different than what a developer wants to do when it's just submitting one line of code. We still get to pen test. We still need to actually go out and hunt. We, thankfully, in this model, get more time to think about these things, to go out and actually look for those deep, nuanced bugs and vulnerabilities that may be residing inside of our infrastructure. The other is that you get to recognize and look for some of those like just bad patterns, what I call like, quote unquote, code smells. We're often called upon to actually, don the hazmat suits. I think it's actually a great thing for a security team to do. It is a skill that most of us already have learned. You get introduced to it actually pretty early. And so it's something you can actually help other teams learn, help them become better incident responders, and even assist with non-security incidents. For better or worse, we deal with this maybe a little bit more often than some other people inside the organization. And if we can assist them, that helps level up the entire company. And they start to see security as the team they want to run to for help, as opposed to the team they want to avoid so they can ship. Legos have these really, really small, tiny pieces. They're like these one singular piece. Legos are only meant for people 3 years old or above. There's a lot of stuff that we still have to stay on top of because, you can choke on Legos if you don't know what you're doing. You put them in the wrong hands, et cetera. You got to be a little bit smart about how you actually roll some of these things out. Some of my favorite things to actually help people avoid with that is this idea of hey, you flag sensitive security operations. This thing you're working on looks like it's critical to the company's security. We can actually just have a Git hook or something like that actually sends an alert. It's like, hey, security wants to talk to you because we think you might be doing something that is a little bit scary. Help people also monitor, but ideally not only just monitor their vulnerable dependencies, help them actually auto-patch. The biggest thing that you should be doing though in the security team is just ship more. You should be writing code. You should be building. If you do not see yourself as a builder, come talk to me, I want to change your mind. Creating golden paths, making the right thing easy and the obvious answer is the way we win, the way we scale. And not only that, it accelerates teams. One of the favorite experiences that I have at Gusto is teams asking me to hire more security people. So hey, I want to work on features. Can you hire some more security people so they can actually help me build these things? It's just a phenomenal experience and completely different than what you see in quote unquote traditional companies or traditional security teams. Helping infrastructure teams or teams in general define and ideally codify known good. Because if you know what known good is, you can always detect any deviation. Something that's different than known good doesn't mean it's bad, but it's not what we set out to do. And you can actually start doing things like auto remediation around that. This idea of also making it much more difficult for people to shoot themselves in the foot when it comes to sensitive data. So building PII services, tokenization services, crypto services, et cetera, so that you have these strong fences and that people aren't afraid to experiment because they know now they kind of have these guardrails. If you don't want to worry about the small blocks, you can always just give your team Duplo blocks. Make some of those things a little bit more complex, a little bit more friendly, easier for them to consume, and they don't need the same level of security knowledge. We should be putting ourselves out of a job. Build robots, automate, 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 automate. Anything that you can do that seems like taking you out of a job, you should be doing that. And the more you can make things self-service, the better for you, the better for your coworkers, and ultimately actually the better for the customer, because you can start pushing quicker and have better security in the entire ecosystem. So to wrap it up, because I've been getting the sign a couple of times, really what I'm actually trying to get is for more people to start thinking about their security organization as a building organization. You have security engineer in your title. Be an engineer. Build. Every single person in this room is capable of writing code. If you don't write code, you can learn. Every person can learn to write code, and it is such a phenomenally powerful thing to do, and that is how we truly scale. And if we can actually do those things and get it right, we have fun, and everything is awesome. So, yeah. Do I have time for what? Oh, I have 6 minutes for questions. So yeah, if there are any questions, I even also welcome heckling. Oh, wow, there actually are some here, and I probably should have brought glasses. Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. You mentioned it's crucial that everyone should be held accountable. On the subject of owning their own risk, what's the material way to do that? The ways actually I like to do that is, as boring as it sounds, risk registers, and just publishing those top risks to the company and the risks that we're still carrying and which teams own those risks. It's amazing how quick people will make different choices once they know that all of the execs are going to see the decision that they made. That changes behavior immediately. When execs see that, oh, this is also going to be presented to the board, immediate behavioral change. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Another question, who do judges typically say is responsible, accountable for information security at a breached company? They generally always hold the executives accountable, but it's the CISO that gets fired. Every single time. And this has happened to friends of mine where I know they were literally doing the right thing. And I know that they were advocating for the right behavior. And there's a reason why the gallows humor for CSO is chief scapegoat officer. It's because, yeah, we're kind of like the first ones to get thrown underneath the bus, or the sacrificial lamb. But it's still an enjoyable job. Whoops. Another question popped up. How do you publish all risk and SLO breaks without building a culture of shaming devs? That's actually a really good question. It's just data. And I am maybe, I don't adhere to the guidance as well. I can occasionally be an ass. And it's like, the data is the data. If you want to change the data, change your behavior. If you are unhappy with having other people know that you're not living up to your obligations, live up to your obligations. Suppose the owner of a small feature accepts the risk, but a breach blows up the reputation of the whole company or creates a path to a larger breach. That's a risk that we take every day. I don't know how to actually solve that problem. I do know that if we empower people more and build more golden paths, we can actually reduce the likelihood of that happening. By us being so involved in some of the bureaucracy, we don't have the time and the resources to actually build the tools to minimize impact and risk. And so I believe that is time and work with gusto. I don't have the little bracelet on, but I will be down in the hall if you have any other questions. In particular, if you have a question about coming to get a job at Gusto, more than happy to actually field those as well. Thank all of you for actually coming out here. And hope you have a great day.